a sentimental sap, that's all. What's the use of trying not to fall? I have no will. You made your kill, 'cause you took advantage of me. I'm just like an apple on the bough, and you're gonna shake me down somehow. So what's the use? You cook my goose, 'cause you took advantage of me. I'm so hot and bothered that I don't know.
Hello there, welcome to Alberto's La Bella Cuccina show. Today have wonderful weather here in the area of Pacific Grove. The weather is magnificent. I think it's about 72 degrees and goes a little lower later on of the day. I'd like to say hello to many people out there in the Fresno area. Some new people that I just met last 2 weeks ago. Their name is Christy. Hello, Christy. Hello, Todd. And hello, Josh. And happy birthday to you, man. Hopefully you enjoy the area of Pacific Grove and coming more often at your vacation home, which is you're always welcome also to Alberto's. So, and we want to welcome also my wonderful sommelier friend and an all-time friend of the wine industry, Mr. Ostrom here once again to tell us more about what are the better wines in the world at this moment, whether it's the Italian wines, the French, the Spanish wines, or any other wines that he is one of the most notorious, a wonderful sommelier, not only in the area of Pacific Grove, but Monterey, Salinas, and even the Napa. It goes all the way up there. So he's going to tell us all about these wonderful wines, and just in a few minutes, he's going to tell us all about that. Tremendous stories about the wines that he enjoys the most. With our friend Mr. Armstrong, and he's going to tell us about the best wines there is.
I've never been called notorious before.
Oh, excuse me, sir.
No, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just never been an adjective anybody's ever used on me. Thank you.
Yes, sir. For me, you are the famous sommelier, and this is what, you know.
Isn't it a beautiful day?
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. The temperature right now is around 72 degrees, and many people would love to be here in this area.
Well, this is good for harvest. This is, Monterey County is a big wine area, and all the way, the whole coast basically from Santa Barbara up to Mendocino is all wine country. And this is, we had a little rain up here. I was worried about the harvest because of the rain, but it wasn't enough that this weather then comes and dries everything right out. and harvest has been, the weather has been so dry and so beautiful all summer that we're way ahead in harvest. So a lot of the grapes were already in before the rain, but this is beautiful weather for harvesting grapes. We're going to have another stellar year for wine in California. So that makes 3 in a row, basically. So we got some.
So when it's very sunny and the weather like this, is it better for the grape, any kind of grape?
It's best for the ripening and to get them physiologically mature, so that the seeds turn brown and the stems turn brown, so you don't get any of that flavor in the wine when you make it. And this is really good for that. Yes.
So it's good for to have the nice sun.
Yep,
they
sun.
Get hot and they come off the branch.
Yeah, and it also keeps them dry. There's always a little breeze going, especially in the Salinas Valley. But the sun keeps them dry, so that to prevent any rot from happening and everything. The only problem is some like Zinfandel. It ripens unevenly within the same cluster, so they have to go in and pick out the raisins that are there when others are just ripe. I was out in vineyards last Sunday, out in the Livermore area, eating Zinfandel and stuff right off the vines, and you can see a cluster. Some of them had little raisins in them, and that's from the heat. But the rest of the cluster is beautiful, so they pick the cluster and then they pull the raisin part out of it. And it's been, so far they say they've been producing some really good
So the raisins are not used at all into the...
No, the only time you really use raisins to make wine is when you intentionally make raisins, or when you intentionally leave usually a white wine, whether it be a Gewürztraminer Riesling or Sauvignon Blanc, you leave them on the vine extended period of time to dry out, not to become a complete raisin, but just to dry them out more. And then we call that late harvest. And then, you know, in Italy, we were just talking about this before we went on the air, the Vinsanto, for instance. The grapes to make Vinsanto are dried on straw mats intentionally. They're picked as grapes, and then they're dried off the vine.
Sweet.
And they're just ultra sweet with very little liquid left, and it produces this wonderful nectar of the gods, as they say.
Vino Santo.
Vinsanto.
Which is one of my favorite wines.
Yeah.
For my dessert, I prefer Vino Santo.
Yeah, nice, beautiful dessert wine that you can have with your biscotti or with dessert, and
A little cheese, a cracker.
Yeah, beautiful
And
with
a
that.
small glass of Vino Santo, and you'll be in heaven. So,
yeah, and there's different ways to make dessert wines. I mentioned the first thing of leaving them out on the vine. The vine shuts down anyway. There's the Vinsanto style or the Recioto with a red style where you actually dry them out after they've been picked. There's ice wine, which Germany and Canada make ice wine, very, very popular, where they let the grapes freeze. And when something thaws out, you know this from in the kitchen, if you ever have something that froze and you thaw it out, there's always liquid left on the platter that it was on or something. Well, it's the same with grapes. You freeze grapes and then you thaw them out and liquid drains off of them, but it's just the water. It's not the flavor and of the grape. So that then when you make the sweet wine from the frozen grape after it's drained all the water off, it's almost like raisining. You're draining water off but leaving the flavor and the pulp to make this beautiful sweet ice wine that's famous in Germany and Canada. But Vinsanto, very hard to beat. It's one of the best.
cheers. Yeah, cheers. There's so many Vinsantos in Italy, but I have my very favorite.
And there's to me, dessert wines are kind of not always seasonal, but people tend to drink them more when the holidays come along. So
Right.
this is the season for ports and Vinsanto and the Botrytis Sauternes from France and the Tokai Azu from Hungary and all the different dessert wines. And it's probably also because it gets a little colder outside and people don't mind. To me, I'd rather drink a glass of Vinsanto or a glass of ice wine instead of eating a dessert. That's my dessert.
Oh, I see what
is
you
the
mean.
dessert wine.
No cheese, no bread.
Yeah, cheese is great too, but
Cheese and little grapes. And
yeah.
yeah.
And that but instead of a heavy, fattening, caloric dessert, just give me another glass of Vinsanto or another glass of port or something. It's a good way to go. And of course, there's many great. Antinori makes a great Vinsanto. Monsanto Winery makes a great Vinsanto. And there's kind of different levels. You can find some that are a bit more viscous or thicker and sweeter, and some that are made a little bit thinner and not quite as sweet. And there are people that like that style better, to actually get a little bit more flavor, a little bit more bitterness out of the wine, so it's not quite as sweet. Really good for dipping your biscotti and when you eat it. Kind of like the Americans when they dip their donuts in the coffee, or their cookies in the coffee, or in the milk, dipping the Oreos in the milk. The Italian dip the biscotti in the Vinsanto. It's really nice to do it that way.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, it's delicious.
I prefer the Vinsanto.
Yeah.
Being in the Vinsanto.
Being in an Italian restaurant
Being in an Italian
as well.
restaurant here, with Italian music and Pavarotti and the
And the Vinsantos come from different areas of Italy, but most of them come from Tuscany.
Tuscany. That's the best.
Yeah, that's where you find most of them.
And I have to agree with you that I like Tuscan Vinsanto, Vino Santo.
Yeah, that's where the Antinori's from. That's where the Monsanto is from and stuff. And there's a dessert wine also from Italy, from the Veneto area, the Valpolicella producers will produce a Recioto, which is a dried, they raisin up or dry red grapes, and Corvina, which is what makes Valpolicella and Amarone and Ripasso, one of your favorite wines, a
Yes,
Ripasso.
indeed, yes.
And then they make a dessert wine, a red dessert wine, but it's not, so like a port, for instance, or a Banyuls from France, those are fortified. They make them sweet. They stop the fermentation with brandy spirits, And so you have a sweet wine that's anywhere from 18 to 20% alcohol. But when you make Recioto, it's a dried red grape. It just comes out really sweet because there's no liquid really in it, and you don't need to fortify it. So
you don't need to add sugar.
it just
nothing.
no,
it's
it's all there. It comes out.
Natural.
It's really delicious.
And the fact that they're on the ripasso, that makes it sweeter.
Yeah, really good with chocolate desserts. So it's that's also a really cool thing. And then of course the other dessert wines that you get from Italy, Moscato. You know, even it's slightly fizzy or dry or non-fizzy. But Moscato is not quite as sweet as Vinsanto, but it is definitely a sweet wine, good for dessert. And I like that more with fresh fruit and with like a panna cotta or something where the cream-based desserts and fresh fruit, because it's not as thick and heavy, and it tends to go with the lighter style desserts better, the Moscato. And there's different variations. Moscato d'Alba in the Piemonte area is probably where some of the best of it comes from.
So your favorite Vinsanto, which it would be what?
My favorite Vinsanto is Monsanto. Your favorite Vinsanto is Antinori. We had this discussion before before we went on the air. And you know, just shop around, get a little half bottle. All of these are, you know, they're available at fine wine shops. And if they don't have them, shame on them, because they should.
We have to have a Vino Santo here at Alberto's Ristorante.
Yeah.
So
and you just serve a little bit.
A little bit of a Vinsanto, a little biscotti, and that's it. You would have a wonderful dinner.
And you've already had your wonderful dinner. This is just the icing on the cake.
Correct.
Top it off.
Yes.
So.
Yes. So the more wines are, the better. When you have the last drink, it will be a Vino Santo.
Yeah, and then if you want it, like I say, a little sparkle, the Moscato is a great one. There's also another dessert wine that I really like from the Piemonte area, and this one is unusual. To me, it's like drinking fizzy strawberries, and it's called Bracchetto, and it is a pink sparkling wine from the Piemonte area, and sweet like Moscato, and a little fizzy, and it's red. It's a lighter red. And when you drink it, it's like drinking, you know, like say strawberries, ripe strawberries have been fermented, but it's not. It's the grape. It's a red grape, but that's made dark pink, and it's delicious dessert wine.
Does that have to be cold?
Yes. Yeah.
Very cold.
Yeah. Any fizzy, any effervescent wine should be cold. Otherwise, the bubbles dissipate very quickly, and sometimes when you pop the cork, they go. It's not as fizzy as champagne. So they have a different style of cork on them than a champagne does. They don't have the basket on the top, but Bracchetto, delicious red dessert wine from Piemonte region, the northwest area of
Sounds great. We're going to continue talking more about the next segment about nice Chiantis, Merlots, Cabernets. Your favorites from California, right after this message. Thank you.
Seaside Auto Center in Seaside. Only in Seaside will you find Acura, Audi, BMW, Cadillac, Chevrolet, Chrysler, Dodge, Fiat, Ford, GMC, Honda, Infiniti, Jaguar, Jeep, Land Rover, Lexus, Lincoln, Nissan, Porsche, Ram, Scion, Subaru, Toyota, and Volvo. More models to choose from and better deals at Seaside Auto Center. Easy to find off Highway 1 in Seaside. Seaside Auto Center. Online at seasideautodealers.com.
Would you like to help bring comfort to a child in crisis, a terminally ill patient, or one of the forgotten elderly? Teddy Bears with Heart, a local nonprofit, has received so many bear requests for the holiday season that once again our cupboards are bare of bears. Small bears are needed for fire engines and police cars. Mid-sized bears are used in Casas and Salinas and Santa Cruz County Children's Courts. And new bears, acceptable for all ages, are needed for hospitals. You can help by donating a teddy bear at one of our drop-off locations throughout Santa Cruz and Monterey counties. Please visit our webpage at tbwh.org for specific places.
Thank you for coming back to Alberto's restaurant. And we are having an incredible conversation with Mr. Doug Armstrong, the wonderful specialist in wonderful wines.
You can say notorious again.
Notorious.
I don't mind.
Notorious in the wine industry. So he's here to tell us all about the great wines that are actually happening now. But like we talked a little bit ago about Vino Santo. Now he's going to tell us which is one of the wines in the California area, like a Merlot or a Cabernet. This is the best time to drink a nice Cabernet. Or one of your favorites. Which is one of your favorites one?
Oh my gosh, that's a tough question. Stag's Leap, Schaefer, Dariouche,
And that's
Cliff
what?
Letty, the Cabernet Sauvignon. You mentioned Cabernet
Yeah.
Sauvignon. There's some great Cabernets. The Napa Valley, of course, is known the most for Cabernet. That's where you'll find the more expensive Cabernets of this area of California. That's where Stag's Leap Wine Cellars is. That's where Schaefer is. That's where Silver Oak is. You go up on the mountains. I prefer personally some of the Stag's Leap district as well as the Howell Mountain district. The Howell Mountain area, you get a little bit more softness to the grapes. And one of my favorites from the Howell Mountain district is a wine called Viader, Viader. It's Delia Viader's winery, a delicious wine. There's another one called Roberts and Rogers. It's really nice, but I like the Cabernets from Napa mostly coming from the east side, which is where the Silverado Trail cuts right through Stag's Leap and then goes up to Howell Mountain. But there's some spectacular ones coming from there. If you want Cabernets that are a little bit more price conscious, but still really good quality, and this is probably the fastest growing up and coming region in California, and that to get it from Paso Robles area. Paso Robles AVA, yeah. Justin is down there. Of course, Justin Isosceles, their red blend is very famous, but they're very well known now for Cabernets. As well as Zinfandel Petit Syrah, but it's because it's a lot warmer. Napa is very warm, but in Paso Robles there's a lot of different pockets of different types of weather. You'll hear arguments over the east side and the west side and the Templeton Gap, and we need to be different than that. And it's generally perceived that the west side of Highway 101 in the Paso Robles puts out some of the better ones. And that's where you'll find Justin and Hearst Ranch and some of the others that are really, really good Cabernets. I like drinking Cabernet Sauvignon. I don't, I'm a former chef, you know that, for many, many years. I personally don't think Cabernet goes as well with food as something like Pinot Noir or Syrah. And I know their Syrah is kind of peaked out and harder to sell. People aren't quite sure what they're drinking or what it is, but to me Syrah goes really well with food, and Pinot Noir is my favorite varietal of all. I prefer French Burgundy. Red Burgundies are all Pinot Noirs. White Burgundies are all Chardonnays.
So any Burgundy is a Pinot Noir?
Yeah, any Burgundy that's red is Pinot Noir. Any Burgundy that's white is Chardonnay. So it's just the Burgundy is the area of France, and there are many different places and labels and stuff that make it. It's very unique over there, and that the vineyards are owned by different people. You can have a Grand Cru or Premier Cru vineyard, like in Puligny Montrachet, for instance, and have this vineyard, and it can be owned by 8 or 10 different families, and one family will own 4 rows, another family will own 3 rows, and that's why you can see this vineyard and Puligny Montrachet on a label, but with different names on the labels. And they actually are estate because they own those 3 rows.
So the Puligny Montrachet is a Burgundy?
Puligny Montrachet is an area in Burgundy.
In Burgundy.
Just
so
like
is it Puy-Foussay and all of those?
Pardon me?
Puy-Foussay too?
Puy-Foussay is a different area in Burgundy.
Okay.
And
But it's a Burgundy.
actually, no, I'm
It's
sorry.
not from Burgundy.
Puy-Foussay is from north. It is Burgundy, but it's closer to the Macon area.
Oh, Macon.
And it's it's white, and it's Chardonnay.
It's a Chardonnay,
Yeah.
white Burgundy.
Yes.
From Burgundy.
Correct. It's from the northern end of Burgundy, and we're getting towards the Macon Viage area in the Macon.
So a lot of people think
and that is Burgundy.
Burgundy is a red wine.
That is because
Yes.
that is because I won't say names, but some big producers from the Central Valley of California making these big jug wines would put Hardy Burgundy on their label, and everybody thought for a long time here in California that's what Burgundy was. Real Burgundy is produced only from the Burgundy region in France, and if it's red, it's Pinot Noir. If it's white, here, if you get Hardy Burgundy or Burgundy from California, if it says that word, you're not really quite sure what's in it unless you read the text sheet and find out what's in it.
Yes.
So-
It's like people get confused also the fact that the Chianti is Sangiovese.
It's not a grape.
Right.
Yeah.
It's Chianti. Sangiovese is from Chianti.
Yes, and they've had some rules there for quite a long time that have just recently changed. And where I was on Sunday, I was up in the Livermore area, and there's a winery up there growing and making some Trebbiano.
Ah.
And I reminded some of the people I was with that up until recently, Trebbiano had to go into Chianti. Only a little bit, but it's a white grape. And you had to have a little bit of white grape in the Chianti. But Chianti is an area. And it's actually the Chianti Classico. When you see Chianti Classico, people think, oh, it's a classic Chianti, but it's not. Classico is one of the areas of Chianti. There are 6 or 7 regions. There's Rafina, there's different regions, and Classico is just one of those. It is considered the best region, but it's just the name of the region in Chianti. But Sangiovese is the base grape, and now they changed the law, or the law of the DLC, so that they do not have to put the Trebbiano in there anymore. But for many, many, many years, it was actually one of the things that kicked off the Super Tuscan phase, because there were wineries that did not want to put white grapes in their blends.
Oh.
So they decided to not do it, and they couldn't call themselves Chianti, so they made up a name: Sassicaia, Ornellaia, Tignanello, and they became what was known as Super Tuscan.
And your favorite ones.
Yeah. One of my favorite ones?
And your favorite ones, Sassicaia and Tignanello.
Those are all really
Gaia.
delicious wines.
And
Gaia doesn't do a Super Tuscan. They do Brunellos,
Yeah.
but Gaia makes Barolos,
Barolos.
that are
Out of reach.
so expensive.
out of reach.
We were just discussing that too. Yeah, those are extremely expensive
not
wines.
in my pocket. They've been,
Angelo Gaia, but so that in California, like I said, I was on Cabernet from the area down below us, Cabernet from Napa. Pinot Noirs is our pride and joy here in Monterey County, and we have different appellations within Monterey County. We have the Chalon appellation on the east side of 101. We have, or of the valley. We have the Santa Lucia Highlands, which is a very well-known appellation now on the west side of the Salinas Valley. The Arroyo Seco also produces some nice Pinots, but you can find some beautiful Pinot Noir coming from the Santa Lucia Highlands. We have this unique weather here, foggy in the morning, foggy in the evening. A breeze comes up about 3 o'clock in the afternoon that really helps air out and dry out the grapes. Pinot Noir thrives on a cooler climate. They can't be too hot, like in the Central Valley, for instance, Lodi or whatever. You don't see a lot of Pinot coming from there, or you don't see a lot of Pinot coming from Paso Robles because it just gets too warm. So Monterey County, beautiful for Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, Syrah. Go past Paso Robles and get into the San Luis Obispo area, where it's Edna Valley and even parts south Santa Maria, Santa Barbara. Also beautiful Pinot Noir, because that area is actually the coolest growing climate for a day's temperature. The mean temperature is the coolest in the whole state of California. But they also, wherever you can grow good Pinot Noir, you can grow good Syrah. And one of my favorite Syrahs are from the Santa Barbara area is Coupe, Q-U-P-E.
Are the Syrahs expensive, or they're
No,
little?
no, they have a varying range. I would say from 15 retail up to $40, but you can get them very affordable. But there's some really nice Pinot Noirs, and of course from here, Pinot Noirs, Talbot, of course, they do a great job. And on the other side, there's Chalon. But this is also the area where Pizzoni is, and where Rohr is, and Rath, and you can get Santa Lucia Highlands Pinot Noirs also from Hahn, that they have regular level, reserve level, and then they have some vineyard designate stuff, and it's all really nice. So you can get an idea from what you can get all the way up and down the Santa Lucia Highlands. But Pinot Noir is my favorite. We're just, I'd say, finishing up harvest, and we're going to have an abundance of really great wine from the last 3 vintages right here from Monterey County. So pretty excited about it.
Because of the great weather.
Yep, the great weather, the climate has been so good the last 3 years for harvest. Not rain until after harvest, and the state of California is in a drought. That's actually good for growing grapes for the quality level, not necessarily the quantity, but the quality. It's like dry farming almost, but they do irrigate a little bit still, but the lack of rain hurts us by all means in the state, but it actually helps the quality of wine. So it's going to be, it's going to be, I'd say, another great season. I'm looking forward to all the Pinot Noirs we're going to be getting from there and stuff. And the Syrah, like I said, I mentioned Syrah. Syrah is a nice grape, and I really like drinking Syrah. A lot of people are like, have turned off on it for some reason, and I don't know why. It goes so well with food. It grows in hot climate, it has different characteristics, and it grows in cold climate, it has different characteristics. Syrah thrives over in the Rhone area in France, and in the south it's Châteauneuf-du-Pape, it's Côte de Rhône, it's Gigondas. In the north it's Côte Rôtie, a completely different style if you taste them, and that's what the cold weather and the warm weather does. The warm weather brings out more black pepper and more in-your-face forward fruit. The cold weather will give you a Syrah that's more refined and more white pepper and more complex to me. And,
wonderful.
Yeah, and it's also, both of them, depending on what you're eating, go really well with food. And we grow great Syrah in the state. We got Syrah obviously in Monterey County, I already mentioned, but we got Syrah down in Santa Barbara. Syrah grows in Paso Robles, and you get more of the warmer style. And Syrah also goes great up in Sonoma, also grows great out in Amador. So we got a lot of different Syrahs coming around. And I encourage anyone that really isn't a Syrah drinker or tried Syrah to give it a shot, and it's great with the food. To me, better food wine than Cabernet Sauvignon. So
the Syrah.
Yeah.
Better than.
But with food, yeah, definitely. Cabernet, sitting out on the back deck with some cheese, beautiful. But if you're having a meal, Pinot Noir, Syrah, to me, go better with food.
We're going to have to continue with more and more wines now. We're going to find out from this master sommelier about the wines in Europe, the Italian wines, the French wines, the Spanish wines, right after these mentions. Thank you.
The following is a list of celebrities you will not see on MeTV programs. Charlie Sheen, Lindsay Lohan, Snooki, Paris Hilton, Perez Hilton, Honey Boo Boo, Justin Bieber, Simon Cowell, Chris Brown, Miley Cyrus, and the Real Housewives of any place. This is who you will see on MeTV programs. Lucy, Ralph, Mary, Perry, Gilligan, Kenneth, Spock, Batman, Rowdy, Festus, and the Beaver. MeTV. Thanks for watching.
Do you like to win stuff? Would you like to be a winner? Join the MeTV Club today. It's very easy to do. Just call Jim Vossen at 831-236-5994 or send him an email to jim@montereytelevision.com. To learn more, go to www.metvclub.com. That's www.metvclub.com.
Hi, welcome back to Alberto's La Bella Cuccina show. We're having a great conversation about, guess what? Wines. Wines are so important nowadays with your meal that we have an expert today right here at Alberto's Ristorante to tell us all about Italian wines, French wines, Spanish wines, and more. Right now, he's going to tell us all about it. Which is the one who's selling it more? With us, the French, they're at the same level. French, Italian.
French and Italian are probably they continue to probably be the two strongest imports. The growth of Spanish wines over the last 10 to 15 years has been phenomenal. And of course, Australia has kind of peaked. Their growth has been slowed down, but they grew so fast along quite a while ago that they've kind of leveled off, but she's still got some stellar wines coming from there. And one of the areas with one of the highest growths in wine now is Argentina. And that they grow some wonderful wines, mostly varietals that they got cuttings from France, Bordeaux varietals, Malbec, things like that. But French and Italian probably are still the two strongest. And in France, Bordeaux and Burgundy rule the roost. But if you go to France, if you go to Paris or whatever and go into the restaurants, Sancerre is really hot over there. And Sancerre is an area in the Loire, which they refer to as, Sancerre shares an area called the Central Vineyards. And that's where Sancerre, Pouilly-Fumé, Chinon are all located there. And in Sancerre, it's predominantly two things, and it's Sauvignon Blanc and Pinot Noir. And so anytime you see a white Sancerre, it's Sauvignon Blanc. It's what it goes so well with seafood, so well with oysters. But if you're in Paris, all the trendy restaurants have Sancerres by the glass. And actually, one of my favorite white wines coming out of France. I love good Sancerre, and I love Sancerre Rosé. Rosé made from Pinot Noir, and that's one of my favorite white wines from France right now.
The high-end
No,
area?
not at all. I mean,
Sancerre?
it isn't cheap by any means, but you can get it in the stores for $19.99. And
oh, really?
yeah. So and Sauvignon Blanc to me is also a really good food wine. Really great with even raw, like oysters and things like that, but not necessarily. It goes good with cream sauces and scallops and lobster and crab and things like that. It's got a lot of lemon lime going in it, a little higher acid in it, but perfect with food. It just I just like how it tingles my taste buds and always makes me want to go back for another sip. And the secret to me to good wine, no matter what you're drinking, if you're drinking the wine and it doesn't tingle your taste buds and want you to go back for a second sip right away, the wine you're drinking is pretty mediocre. If you can sit with a glass of wine and it doesn't urge you to grab it again,
you're good.
I don't care for it. You know, some people would be fine with it, I guess, but that's what it is about good wine. A good balanced wine will urge you to come back and pick the glass back up and take another sip. That's my personal favorite coming out of France right now. My favorite to drink red wine is Burgundy, and you can get just Bourgogne. Look at a house, whether it be Louis Latour or Jaboulet or whatever. Just look for their base, Bourgogne Rouge or Bourgogne Blanc. Nice little wines for just everyday use, by all means. Bordeaux's you can find, as well, but and I do like Bordeaux, but I prefer the other two. Italy, we talked about Chiantis and stuff. It's hard to go wrong with Chianti, but Chianti and Pinot Grigio have become a wine that all restaurants need to have, not just Italian restaurants. Pinot Grigio is the grape, Chianti isn't, so it's kind of confusing, but Pinot Grigio is now the number two, or Pinot Grigio is the same grape as Pinot Gris. The French call it Pinot Gris, the Italians call it Pinot Grigio. It is now the number two selling white wine in the United States, the white wine varietal, and it's the number one in the world. It passed Chardonnay in worldwide consumption. Chardonnay is still number one white grape or white varietal in the United States. So when you go into any restaurant, you should see Pinot Grigio and Chianti on their wine list, and there's a lot of nice ones out there. I like to go to the Reserva level when I drink my Chianti, just because you're getting a little bit better pick of the grapes, a better pick of the barrels, and I like a Pinot Grigio. If I'm going to drink a Pinot Grigio from there. I usually like to drink like a Gavi or a Falangina or something that's a little bit unusual. But if you're going to go for a Pinot Grigio, avoid the really cheap ones because they really, to me, don't have any flavor.
So what do you mean by that? A Pinot Grigio could go
I think
$40,
if you want to have if you want to have a good Pinot Grigio, you need to look for the $15 and up, and you're going to have a completely different experience than if you go get the $6.99 or $7.99 ones.
Okay.
That's what I mean by cheap. When you get into the really inexpensive Pinot Grigio, I would avoid that. But look for the Falangina is really one of the hottest wines over in Italy. If you're going into the restaurants there, Falangina by the glass everywhere in the restaurants. And that comes from the west side of Italy, southwest. That's really nice. I like those, and I also like drinking like you do, the Ripasso from the Veneto. It's a step above the Valpolicella, but it's not as expensive and not as thick and chewy as the Amarone. It actually reminds me sometimes of Syrah, and maybe that's why I like it so much. But and it's not expensive as well. So when you see it, it's actually called a Valpolicella, but it's a Valpolicella Ripassa, and it means they take the must left from making the really expensive Amarone, put it into a Valpolicella to make it what you and I refer to as a baby Amarone. Good value wines, great wines coming out of Italy. And that's what I would go for if I was just to go grab a wine off the shelf. Yeah. Going into Spain has experienced immense growth coming out of that country. They're known for a couple of things. One of the big things they're known for is Rioja and the Tempranillo grape. And Rioja is the area, predominantly Tempranillo, but Tempranillo grows all over the country, and in different areas is called something different. Ribera del Duero is they have their version of Tempranillo. If you see a Tinta de Toro on a bottle from the Toro region, that's another version of Tempranillo. It's a different, they say a different clone, but really what it is, it's you take the grapes and put them into a different climate and a different soil, and over the years they kind of develop their own character. So they started as maybe cuttings from the Rioja area or whatever, but when you put them over into a different soil and a different climate, 25 years later, they're tasting a little different. It's kind of like what Australia did with the Syrah grape and turned it into their Shiraz. So they have a bunch of different Tempranillos, but from the different areas of the country in Spain, they will taste a little different. If you want a more new world, I would say, more fruit-forward Tempranillo, I would go to the Toro region. Lots of great stuff coming out of there, and there's also some very expensive things coming out of that area, Numancia, Tremantia. But a good, reasonably priced $12.99 to whatever Tinta de Toro is really good quaffing wine, really delicious. And if you're going to drink white from Spain, there are Verdejos, which are really good and everything, but and there's Albarino. Everybody knows about Albarino. It grows on the Atlantic side of Spain. Big, tall plants that you can walk underneath, and the grapes have to hang down loose because it's so humid next to the ocean that they need the breezes to dry to keep the grapes dry.
Sounds delicious.
But my favorite grape, a white wine coming from Spain, is more from the northwest area, and it was almost extinct at one time, and it's called Godello. And if you can go find a Godello anywhere from $15 to $20, it'll be a great experience. And it's out on that side or that coast of Spain, they actually have a lot of farm-raised seafood, farm-raised mussels, scallops, clams, oysters, and they develop these white wines to go with this big seafood. If you can't find great fish on that side, you can't get it anywhere. It's coming right out of the Atlantic Ocean, fresh, and some of it farm-raised, and it's very healthy. It's out in the middle of the bay. They don't do it in ponds and stuff. It's really nice, and the Godello is beautiful with that. It's turned into my favorite white wine coming from Spain. And if I was going to go for red wines, although I love Rioja, I love Ribera del Duero, if you go into the central area of the country, In the Jumilla area, you get some nice wines and some good value wines, all dry farm. But my favorite wines are coming out of an area in the northeast called Priorat. And you're going to laugh probably because one of the grapes they grow up there is Syrah, and I just happen to like that. But they also grow Cabernet, they also grow Merlot, they also grow a little Tempranillo, and the Priorats are usually blends. And I visited there once. To me, it was an absolutely mystical place to be. It was almost spooky at times. It's so quiet. The hills are so high that the slate that is in the vineyards are little stones or things the size of your thumb or finger, and they're all in the soil, and it makes for this really rocky soil with good drainage, but a really specific character to the wines. And they're all little family-run places. And the Priorats, especially in the last 10 to 15 years, you have some that have gotten a bit expensive, by all means, but there are still some affordable wines that you can get from the Priorat area. So that is my favorite part of Spain right now. But great wines coming out of the whole country. And from the same peninsula, from that same Iberian peninsula, there's a little country we always seem to forget called Portugal. And Portugal is known, of course, as having great sweet dessert wines. But in the last, they've always been doing this, but in the last 10 years is when it's really started to be coming over to the United States. But they make great dry red wines as well, and of course white wines. Vino Verde is one of the most refreshing white wines you can get. Very young, effervescent. It means green wine, but it's picked under ripe. But there's some really great red grapes coming from the Douro area that are dry, and still of big value here because they're not as well known. And I would look for some nice. Go to your favorite wine shop, and you want to have a nice hearty red with a steak or lamb or something. Go try a nice Portuguese dry red wine.
How about when we come back, we're going to talk about any sweet wines in Spain?
Yes, there is.
There is. Right after this message. Thank you.
Come here a minute and I'll show you something.
Are you ready for this? MGM's #1 digital movie network.
You could call it that.
And Tribune Broadcasting.
Check this out.
Have teamed up to make this TV the destination for movies.
It's our new house.
Oh my God.
This is a real big deal.
I agree with you.
With MGM's library, one of the deepest and freshest in Hollywood.
There's a fine line between stupid and clever.
With over 4,000 titles, this TV is a powerhouse movie channel.
Oh, look at that.
The best just got better. So step up to this.
I am cool.
Because this is the place to be.
Exactly.
This TV.
This TV is available over the air on channel 27.2. Visit kymbtv.com for a list of all our stations.
You're watching memorable entertainment television. MeTV Monterey.
Hello there, welcome back to Alberto's La Bella Cuccina. Today we have a great program, especially talking to Master Sommelier, Mr. Doug Lundstrom. And we're going to remind you that on Saturday, the 4th of October, Sinatra's Tribute is back. So remember to make your reservations now at area code 831-373-3993. And remember that make your reservation now. Sinatra is heading really a good area, so you can eat, enjoy a great wines from Mr. Ostrom, and have a great time.
And great entertainment.
He's going to be here, great entertainer too. Mr. Ostrom is going to be saying hello to all of the public here with his great wines he's going to bring out of his new company. Yes, indeed. So remember, October the 4th, Sinatra Tribute at Alberto's Restaurante, where you can have a great meal and you go out satisfied by having a wonderful meal and wonderful wines. Okay, so remember, Alberto's Restaurante, Sinatra Tribute, October the 4th. Now let's go back and try to talk about some great champagnes.
First off, I have to correct you. I'm not a master sommelier.
Well,
That's a term, and I just want to make sure. I had my advanced degree and stuff, but I'm not quite to the master yet. Someday I'll get there. At any rate, we were talking about Spain earlier, and you mentioned off the air, do they have dessert wines? And I'll touch a bit on that as well, because there's some great values in dessert wines, and there's also some expensive ones over there. But they also, like Italy, have great Moscato. And they have it still and slightly fizzy as well. And to me it's a little different over there because the flavor profile is a little bit different. Moscato's the same by all means, but it's almost like an orange muscat that it grows. Seems to be that the fruit profile is a little different, but you can get some really affordable, sweet Moscato from Spain that is absolutely delicious and a great dessert wine. And then of course there's the great dessert wines and from sherry. Jerez, Jerez, but we call it sherry. And Jerez is the area, it's South Spain. Unique way of making wine. It's called a Solera system, whereas when you make regular wine, you have tanks or barrels, and it's one thing, tanks and barrels. The Solera system is, as you take wine out of the bottom, you add more to the top. So over the years, the Solera just keeps intermingling, and you make different styles and different grade levels of sherry, whether it be Fino, whether it be Manzanillo, or whatever. But as you get into
out of the same barrel,
no, they have different Soleras for it, and they blend it according to the style that they want. But they have the system is set up where you put it in the top, and as you bottle from the bottom, and then the same wine stays in there and they add to it. It's called the Solera system. But down in Jerez, there's a grape called Pedro Jimenez. We refer to it short for PX. So if you see something on a label from the sherry region that says PX or Pedro Jimenez, you'll see that it's a lot darker. And it's a lot nuttier. There's also a style of sherry called Oloroso, which is also, if you look at it, some of them are almost looking like you're drinking chocolate. They're that dark, and they get a bit oxidized in the Solera system, and they're just really sweet and really good sipping wines. But the Pedro Jimenez isn't as dark as Oloroso, and it's almost like the color of Insanto or something, just a light brown and golden color, and that is the cream of the crop, I guess, as dessert wines from Spain, is Pedro Jimenez. Just like Sauterne is from France and from Portugal. That is, if you really want to get the epitome of the best dessert wine out of Spain, look for a good PX. Comes in little 375s or 750s. Some of it can be expensive, but you can find some very affordable ones. Absolutely delicious.
Delicious.
Yeah, and then they have a sparkling wine over there called Cava. It's made the same way as Champagne, but it's not from Champagne. It's not from the Champagne grapes. They make it from some different varietals. There's usually 3 varietals used, and Macabeo is the main one, Paralata and Zarello. And it comes from different areas of Spain, and there's different quality levels of cava. You can get inexpensive, like Freixenet, all the way to some expensive single vineyard cavas. And what they're trying to do, what they tried to do in the very beginning was make champagne with what they had growing in Spain. So they know they couldn't call it champagne, and they tried to emulate what they think and what I think is the best sparkling wine in the world, and that is from Champagne. Champagne itself, we don't want to talk about some of the higher end things, but Champagne is an area in France. It's northeast France, I guess. It sometimes gets so cold that the grapes won't ripen. So there's vintage Champagne, but vintage Champagne doesn't happen every year. Sometimes in a decade you'll get 3 vintages or 4 vintages. And it's because the quality level they don't feel, and they actually get together and discuss this as a consortium to determine whether they will declare vintages or not. But it's in spectacular years, you get vintage champagne. What happens with the rest? That's what you get into the non-vintage champagne.
So Champagne, again, another region, like we were talking
Correct.
about Burgundy and Chianti, Champagne, Dom Perignon, and all those.
They use three varietals.
Three varietals, okay.
The main varietal is Pinot Noir. The next varietal is Chardonnay. And the third varietal is another red grape and a cousin called Pinot Meunier. And it's also a red grape.
What makes them the Champagne effervescent? I mean, with gas.
It's the soil. Oh, what makes that? It's a natural process. It goes through a secondary fermentation in the bottle. So the first step in making champagne is to ferment the grape as it is. And there is actually some that'll do it in barrel, some will do it in tank, some will do it in the bottle. But after it's fermented and put into a bottle, it's unfiltered, so there's some yeast cells and use the word sludge floating around in there. So then they riddle the bottles, and they're in a rack, and if they're hand riddled, they go out into the say warehouse or the winery every day, and somebody will take the bottle and it's sticking in a hole, and they turn it a quarter turn. So if you ever get a bottle of champagne and there's a white mark on the bottom of the bottle, that marks how they've been riddling. So they turn the bottle a quarter turn, and then they'll do that to every bottle in the winery. So there'll be a few people doing it, not just one guy. And then they come back and turn it another quarter turn, so they can keep track where that white mark is. All the bottles, when they're done, the white mark should be in the same place.
Got to be done.
But as you turn the bottle, you also tilt it, so the rack is able to hold it upwards. So as you turn and turn, the sludge gathers, the yeast cells gather on the bottom, and then as you turn it, you also move it up. So when it ends up, it's upside down. All of the yeast cells have gone into the neck, and there's a bottle cap on it, just like the old bottle beer caps we used to use when we were younger. And then they freeze that in liquid nitrogen. They freeze just the top. They pop off that top, and out squirts all of that sludge, and that leaves a gap in the bottle. And they take another mixture of wine and more sugar, and because there's still some yeast cells in that bottle, and they pour that in to top the bottle off, and they cork it. When that happens, that new sugar and wine goes with the yeast cells and makes more fermentation in the bottle, and that's what makes the beautiful fizz that you got when you open champagne. Now, if you buy inexpensive champagne, if you see anything on the label that says bulk method, Charmat method, tank method, throw away everything I just told you. This is an inexpensive way of making it is adding CO2 to it, just like they add to soda. So the cheap, inexpensive sparkling wines, there's no cheap champagne, it's sparkling wines. You'll see big bubbles like if it was a 7-Up. The fine champagnes have this fine mousse, we call it, which is the bubbles rising from the bottom of the glass. And of course there's big houses. Champagne is only so big. The only way you can plant new vineyards is if you rip up old vineyards. So they can't grow champagne any bigger than it already is.
Right.
That's why it's so special. Special soil, special weather, and with that comes some specific vineyard sites that are even better than others, and that's what turns out some of the best champagne. Premier Cru or Grand Cru are the best vineyards, Premier Cru, and then the village wines. So when you see like Dom Perignon, it's all Grand Cru. When you see Cristal, all Grand Cru. So you're paying for some of the best vineyards that there is. Krug, which is very interesting. Krug makes their lowest price wine is the same price as, or even more than Dom Perignon, and it's non-vintage. But really what they call it is multi-vintage. It's wines made from vintage wines, and they blend the different vintage wines into their Krug cuvee. But their vintage champagne is spectacular, and they have one specific wine that comes just from a walled-in, enclosed vineyard, and it's called Clos de Menil. Krug Clos de Menil. $500-600 a bottle. Absolutely delicious.
In the store.
Absolutely delicious.
Not in a restaurant. A restaurant costs
No,
more.
it's even more than that in a restaurant. Yeah. So I mean, your top of the line champagnes when you're looking for the best. Dom Perignon, Cristal, of course. Veuve Clicquot's top one is called Le Grand Dame. Krug, even their lower end is great. Now Baron Rothschild now makes great champagne, and Salon is extremely expensive. Bollinger, by the way, one of the few, I should say, not one of the only, one of the few champagne houses that barrel ferment the wine first, so you get a little bit more toastiness to the Bollinger. Extremely delicious champagne, top of the line. Then you have the Perrier Jouet flower bottle if you really want to show off a really hand-painted flower bottle. Their Grand Cru. The top of the line wines or champagnes like that, the houses that make them refer to them as their tête de cuvée, the head of the winery, basically. And it's the season for those wines.
Champagne.
It's, if you're not gonna, the holiday season, it's great for gifts, great for parties, and if you're gonna splurge, this is the time of year to do it, to go out and spend that much money on it.
I hope you remember that.
But it is worth it. I will
Okay.
assure you, those great champagnes are worth every penny.
I hope you remember that next Christmas.
Yeah, when it's time for your gift, is that what you're talking about? Now, I'll be drinking it, I can guarantee you that.
Yes.
Yeah. I do that more at the holidays like Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's. To me, New Year's, it's a waste unless you're with just a close party with personal friends. But if you're at a big party with that, you don't want to bring out all that. Bring out the normal champagne. Save the best for your Christmas dinner or your whatever around the holidays.
So we had a great visit with a wonderful friend that's been with us 2 or 3 times now, and our show.
I'll be back.
Our regular show.
Yeah, I'll be back.
He's coming back. He's to learn a lot more about all of his knowledge about wine. In the meantime, we'd like you to have a wonderful day and enjoy a great meal at Alberto's Restaurante, located at 1219 in Pacific Grove, in the area of Pacific Grove. So remember, Sinatra Tribute, October the 4th, right here at Alberto's Restaurante.
The chairman of the board.
Yes, indeed. And remember to call and make a reservation. Area code 831-373-3993. And from now on, and for the next one, we'll say goodbye and God bless you. Thank you.
Oh, I have no will. You made your kill 'cause you took advantage of me. I'm just like an apple on the bough, and you're gonna shake me down somehow. So what's the use? You cook my goose 'cause you took advantage of me. I'm so hot and bothered that I don't know my elbow from my ear. I suffer something awful each time you go, and much worse when you're near. Here I am with all my bridges burned, just a babe in arms where you're concerned. So lock the door and call me yours, 'cause you took advantage of me. That I don't know my elbow from my ear. I suffer something awful each time you go, and much worse when you're near. Here I am with all my bridges burned, just a babe in arms where you're concerned. So lock the door and call me yours, 'cause you took advantage of me. Oh, you took advantage of me. Yeah, you took